Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Boardwalktech webinar, Are You Ready for Blockchain? Today is Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. My name is Andy Duncan with Boardwalktech, and I'm joined by JB Coopy. Hello, JB.
Hello, Andy. Hello, everybody.
So as an agenda, we're going to run through some slides here to get you up to speed with regard to all of this talk about blockchain. And then we're also going to do a demo, live demo of the Boardwalk application running on top of the Oracle Blockchain Cloud Service. This is a similar demo that we showed last week at the Oracle Open World, where we were honored to be able to present. So what's this blockchain stuff all about? I will say that there's a tremendous amount of activity and discussion around this. When I see quotes from Ginny Rometty, who's the CEO of IBM, that talks about at their March conference in Las Vegas this year that $85 billion IBM is betting the company on three technologies: cloud, AI, and blockchain. You know, that gets my attention. And when you take a look at some of these other kind of quotes here where McKinsey is saying that blockchain is nothing less than the second generation of the internet, and the World Economic Forum saying that 10% of the global GDP will be stored in a blockchain platform within the next 8 years, and the Harvard Business Review talking about blockchain as the first native digital medium for value, just as the internet was the first native digital medium for information. There's some pretty serious discussions going on about blockchain. And while we acknowledge that it's early, we think it's very important for most companies to be thinking about a blockchain strategy and how they would apply this to their business. So first, let's talk a little bit about, what is the difference between kind of how information is moved, digital information is moved today, between parties, and what it would look like in a blockchain environment. So on the left-hand side, you will see that, the way that information is moved between parties, a lot of the time is through email. A lot of the time it's also emailing spreadsheets around. There's certainly EDI networks that have been built into this environment, but it's still very difficult and very cumbersome to be able to exchange information, especially in a multi-party environment. Now, with blockchain and kind of the future that is established here is that the blockchain environment provides an exchange medium, if you will, for people to be able to send information securely and have all of these transactions effectively logged into a digital ledger with a digital ID, so that you have the knowledge that nobody has done anything or attempted to make a change to that particular transaction. And so what this allows us to be able to do by first having a place to go, if you will, for the exchange of information in an agreed format, it provides consensus, provenance, immutability, trust, and finality. And so where we really see, kind of the blockchain need, and where people should be thinking about different areas within your enterprise of where blockchain really will apply going forward, is certainly when you have multiple parties where you're trying to share data, especially if you're moving assets through a particular supply chain, or moving information between multiple parties. Also, where blockchain is going to be very valuable is where you have multiple parties that are needing to update data. So this isn't just like, kind of a financial transaction where you're sending money from point A to point B. We really believe that while that will be valuable, that blockchain is going to be super valuable when you've got multiple people involved and those multiple people are updating a lot of information. And you need to have the security and the immutability and the validation that these transactions are actually secure, and that they are who they are supposed to be from. Also, when you need to have verification. So think about when a product gets shipped. Let's say, Merck ships a product to a hospital. How does the hospital and how does Merck know that that particular product has actually been received? And so this is where we talk about requirement of verification that a particular product or shipment has been received. Again, all back through the blockchain and all verified. And then when you have intermediaries involved in a process, one of the things that blockchain is going to do is certainly reduce complexity. And intermediaries add a lot of complexity. So, think of moving, again, things through the supply chain where you may have brokers or other people involved in moving food. And, if you can remove those intermediaries and have a place that you can go and trust and be able to securely exchange information between parties, very, very important. Think of all of the customs work that gets done in moving your products to different countries and all of the logistics and 3PL work that gets done. This is where you can really start to see value by implementing a blockchain environment. Time-sensitive interactions are also very important, so that if you can reduce the time of a response, this is great. Again, another supply chain transaction. And then, where you have transactions that are created by different participants that depend upon each other, and that they depend upon making sure that that transaction is actually validated and is who they all believe that it's from. So these are great areas of focus for blockchain. So let's talk about Boardwalktech's blockchain technology. So Boardwalk is a company that's been around for 12 years. We're based in Cupertino, California, and Mumbai, India. And we've effectively been building digital ledger-based single and multi-party applications for over 12 years. We've done this for some of the largest Fortune 500 companies out there. We have a rapid blockchain application development platform that utilizes as a UI either a browser, mobile, Excel, or enterprise integration, and includes workflow, document storage, and management and transaction history. So what this means is that with Boardwalk and our platform, you can rapidly deliver applications that can run in a digital ledger environment and or a blockchain environment. And we believe that the delivery timing around delivering an application using the Boardwalk platform, it is orders of magnitude faster than utilizing the current technology that is offered in the various blockchain platforms and environments. We also have pre-built starter applications for many supply chain, financial, and HR processes that would be very good examples that would be in blockchain. And Boardwalk's kind of our secret sauce, if you will, is we have a patented data management environment where we manage information at either the cell or the object level. And this is very different. It's different than a relational database. It's different than a NoSQL database. And this allows us to be able to actually do very unique things, solve problems that heretofore have been difficult to solve in the enterprise, and also be able to leverage our digital ledger. So what that means is that when a transaction goes through Boardwalk and it gets stored in a data storage environment, we don't store it in a traditional relational database. It's stored as a digital ledger. So if you think about a digital ledger, when we were all young and we would go to the bank and you would put $10 in your savings account and the teller would write in your savings book by hand, Andy Duncan just deposited $10 in his savings account and his new balance is $312. That's a ledger. And of course, if someone went in after, let's say, 30 ledger entries by the bank and saw that someone tried to change something like the 5th ledger entry 2 years ago, everybody would be able to see it. Well, this is kind of the way that blockchain works today. I like to keep things simple, JB, and go back to the old days when we used to have bank passbooks. But the key here is the ability to have this ledger now in a digital format with encryption technology and other technologies that allows you to be able to verify and validate that the transaction is actually good. So Boardwalk also, in the world of blockchain, there's something called a smart contract. And as you read about this or see videos about it, what exactly is a smart contract? A smart contract is nothing but a way to describe code that is written in the process or application that allows you to be able to do something with that particular transaction. And this is kind of another big thing about blockchain, which is that if we can automate a lot of the processes and eliminate human interaction, this creates value, speeds up the transactions. What do I mean by a smart contract? Imagine you were trying to do something like invoice purchase order reconciliation. And as an invoice comes into the blockchain, it would have smart contract code that would be written in that blockchain that would say, does the invoice number match? Does the PO number match? Does the amount match? Does the customer match? And does the amount and does the due date match? And if all 5 of those things matched through an algorithm that was written, then it would go into either the Oracle or SAP AP system and basically generate a file that says, pay this vendor on the due date. And all of that would be done with no human interaction. All of that can be done through smart contract code and also through blockchain environment where you've got these blockchain as a service systems that will be running that will allow us to be able to very easily exchange information with our trading partners. Boardwalk supports, by the way, the major environments that are out there, including Hyperledger, Ethereum, Corda, or you can actually build a digital ledger private network on Boardwalk today, as we have done with many of the Fortune 500. So how does Boardwalk work? We're going to get to the demo in just a second, but as a refresher, what you're seeing here is 3 different views of data. In the top right would be a browser view. In the top left would be a view in Excel, and underneath that would be a view in a mobile environment. Effectively, all of these UIs work the same. And what happens is someone gets assigned a range of data. That range of data is access controlled, so they have to log in, whether that's through your single sign-on or whatever. And someone would then work as in Excel, as an example, in that Excel environment. And when they're ready to share their information, instead of emailing the file to someone, they simply hit submit refresh. And the Boardwalk system looks at the information that's in the spreadsheet and then shares it into the Boardwalk application engine, which is, again, a digital ledger environment that is sitting either in the cloud or it can sit behind your firewall. And what it does is it makes an insert into the digital ledger based upon the transaction information that you've sent in. So if you change the value, say from 141,000 to 145,000 and submitted that, now it's sitting on the digital ledger. There's a transaction ID against it. If you decided that you wanted that particular transaction to then also get a blockchain transaction ID against it, then that would be submitted into the blockchain environment and returned back with a transaction ID for total validation of that transaction. And we're going to show that to you in the demo. But effectively, what the Boardwalk digital ledger environment allows you to be able to do is very rapidly build applications for the exchange of information with smart contract or algorithms behind the scenes running either locally or at the server that allows you to be able to reduce human interaction and really allow you to be able to collaborate and share information. Once that information is submitted into the digital ledger, then anyone else that is sharing that information, when they refresh their spreadsheet or their browser or their mobile environment, will actually see the change that occurs. And when they see the change that occurs, there's a little red icon that shows up in the top right corner of the spreadsheet cell with a pop-up that says this value changed from 141,000 to 145,800. What have we done? Well, all of a sudden what we've done is we've set up the ability for you to very rapidly collaborate with people, sharing information within a spreadsheet, a mobile environment, or a browser, and manage all that information on a digital ledger with algorithms that can run smart contract code and then also be able to interact onto any of the blockchain environments for, uber validation, if you will, of the information. And then, of course, the other thing that I didn't talk about is that the Boardwalk environment also has full integration. So if you wanted to automate the movement of information in and out of a Salesforce or an SAP or an Oracle, you can do that. And also you can push information out to different areas of visualization tools like a Tableau, a Click, or a Power BI by Microsoft. When someone decides that they want a history of what's happened with regard to a digital ledger transaction, they can click on Show Me a History in the Boardwalk system. And if you take a look in the bottom right, you will see that that shows the complete historical record of every change made, who made the change, the date, the time, and if there's any comments against that particular change. And you will see this in the demo. So this is how the system works today as a digital ledger. Again, I talked earlier about the fact that there's integration. So you can integrate with information throughout your entire enterprise, line that data up into the Boardwalk application engine, and then express it out to different various users in different formats for collaboration, and then push the results back into, again, your systems of record. So JB, I think it's time for us to get to the demo. By the way, before we do that, this is some of the customers that we have today that we've built very sophisticated digital ledger applications running on the Boardwalk system. We're starting to move a lot of these over into a blockchain environment, whether that's on the IBM environment or Oracle environment, or perhaps the Azure environment at Microsoft. And you can see the different industry verticals and also the different types of areas that we focus on with a specific focus in financial services and supply chain. Okay, so JB, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, so this is an example of a bill of material application that we've worked with some of our clients, and we also think is very typical of what people do today, especially when you're involved in multi-party applications. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's a manufacturer, and we're saying it's Brocade, where they have bill of material information that they need to share with their contract manufacturers. And this really can apply to anything. So if you think about what you do in your business, this can be payables information, it can be invoices, it can be pricing. But all of this information, as soon as you go between departments or you go outside the company, you tend to share that information in either a spreadsheet format or some other mechanism. And then people need to work on this information in parallel and not in serial. So this is one of the key things that we think is important when you look at blockchain and why the Boardwalk digital ledger technology fits so nicely, is that each one of these companies today have their own view of the business, but how do you pull all this information together? And then also, how do you add a time dimension to it? Because a digital ledger needs to be changing over time. So during the demo, we'll show how we can pull information into a data view that's Brocade's working with, then have the contract manufacturers interact with the data in the environment that they work in. And then as this information is pushed through the Boardwalk environment, there's smart contract information that is executed based on the data value in what we call the WIP data. And what do we mean by that? Well, if you look at a blockchain demo from any of the other vendors, they always have kind of a limited set of data that they're showing inside of the blockchain view, which is correct, but there's also a lot of information that is associated with that data that leads you up to say, has this particular component or has this data element reached the point where I want to commit it to the block? And we believe if you don't have an environment where you can work with the data in a digital ledger environment that's similar to blockchain for your in-process data, then you're not going to have as effective a deployment as you really need when you're looking for blockchain. Because what you're looking for blockchain is to be able to trust verification and a tamper-proof data store for the information that's working in the block. So let's go see and take a look what it looked like. So I'm going to start with this application. This is the bill of material one, and it's in this particular case, you're seeing it running inside of Excel. Most of our clients start in Excel because everybody knows how to work inside of Excel. And part of what we provide as our patented technology is an ability to take a digital ledger database and connect it right up to an Excel environment without having to go through the process of retooling everything that you do in Excel. So for example, right here, I've got formulas in here that are doing calculations. And maybe I have another calculation over here as well as some conditional formatting that says, hey, if this completed date is less than a week out, then, turn this red so people know that there's an issue. And people are very comfortable putting together this type of data where they say, here are my clients, here are the different contract manufacturers, here's the state of the data that I'm going to use. But then they say, well, how do I share it? And since the Boardwalk database is a digital ledger, you can go in and say, you know what, I want these different people to interact with the data, but I only want them to see their information. So if I take a quick look at what we call row access, you can have any number of users interacting with the Boardwalk digital ledger in Excel or another environment and have it so that they only see their data. So if you see here, for example, Foxconn's only going to see rows where their name shows up in the contract manufacturer, and same thing with Sanmina. But from a user perspective, what they do is they open up Excel just like they do today, and then they click on refresh. And when they click on refresh, it authenticates you, and this can connect to any single sign-on, any credentialing system. It can have the CA data that comes in from the blockchain environment that's all shared. But effectively what it's done at this point is it's gone and looked at this common Boardwalk digital ledger and said, hey, is there any new data that I don't have inside of this process that I need to make decisions on? And through integration, it's pulled in the most recent invoice information and order details for Celestica. So this is the first thing, is being able to enable this exchange of information without having to do cutting and pasting or without having to retool everything that you do today.
Right, and that information came in through integration from the Oracle system that Brocade runs.
Yep. So now, what do you do? Well, the way that the smart contract is set up is that selected columns of information are committed to the block, and they're committed to the block based on the order status reaching a smart contract state of being completed. And with the Boardwalk environment, you have this naturally as part of what we do from a data perspective because we understand change. But equally, this is part of the tenet of the whole blockchain is that, as Andy said, the data gets to a certain point, and then based on that data, it pushes the information to the blockchain. So now I've switched roles. I'm still inside of Excel, but I'm assuming the role of the supplier Foxconn. And you'll note that it's still inside of Excel, but the user interface where the data presented to this user is only their rows of data. So they don't see anything else. They only see rows where Foxconn shows up in the CM column. And this is another tenet of the capabilities of blockchain, is this access control. And the Boardwalk technology provides this capability as part of its enterprise process technology. So it's a perfect alignment with what you do inside of blockchain. So then I can come in and say, well, I'm going to switch this to be completed. And then I'll switch the date here and make this be the 20th because I think that's about right. And I'll say final. And you can see the formula and everything, calculated as soon as I was done. And then I say submit. And at this point, again, it asks for who this user is. And I say, well, I'm part of the blockchain Foxconn. And I say, these are my updates. And then what it does now is it detects what's been changed inside the Excel file. It finds the order status being completed, and then based on that information, it's pushing the information all the way to the Oracle Blockchain Cloud Service and saying, hey, commit this as a block input, and then give me back a transaction ID. So as you can see here, we now have this update that's been generated by the Oracle Blockchain Cloud Service. And again, this could be the Azure one, it could be the IBM one, it could be any of them, where we're communicating from our digital ledger over to the database environment that's coming from the blockchain, and everything's aligned. So that's the update that I do as Foxconn. Now let's say I want to switch over and do a change as Sanmina. So here's looking at the same database, but now rather than using an Excel UI, I'm using a web form. In the web form, I can come in and say, updates, and then I'll say, push this to the database. And again, it's the same notion of submit and refresh. And as you do submit and refresh, only the items that are changed get pushed back to the database. And I didn't see that tell me it was done. So let me go grab that one more time. See, so I have to log in here because this is part of the security. It says if you're not logged in don't give anybody the ability to do updates. So now I can come here and I can say updates, and then I submit this, and then you can see here that the submit is successful. So now if I go back to the Brocade environment, right, which is where I started, and I say refresh this, then part of the Boardwalk Digital Ledger, as Andy said, these updates have been inserted in the database. All these changes come in to this user. So you see here with this change, which was done by Foxconn, where it says change from in progress to completed. You can see here this has been finalized. Here's this update that Sanmina did that's showing up. And then you can go in for any data element without having to do any programming. And this is very important, and say, hey, what's the WIP been on this? I see this is 1020 now, but how many times has this been changed and who's made the changes? And if I click on that cell and I say, show me a history of it, it shows me all the changes that have been done over time and who's made the updates. And in fact, as I scroll over here and I look to the right, I can see when was the most recent change done to this data. And since I have a complete history of all the changes over time, I'm able to drive pivot reports and other updates based on the data to say, what's the current state of all the information. And then the last thing is to take a look at this value right here, which is the transaction ID, and I can see it's 8D135. And if I go back and I say, well, let's take a look at the Oracle Blockchain Cloud Service, and I say, hey, refresh this data so I can take a look at these transaction IDs. And if I come back here and I take a look at this last one, you can see here's the transaction ID, 8D13527, that was created as a commitment for the data from the Boardwalk system over to the blockchain system. So now you have an irrefutable and non-changeable version of the data that's shared as a ledger between all the different participants without having anybody have to go around and say, hey, what's the provenance of this information?
Terrific demo, JB. Thank you very much. So as a summary, what have you just seen? Well, you've seen the Boardwalk platform where an application was built, moving information between a manufacturer and their contract manufacturers, and different views of data in the ability to exchange that information, not only connected to the Boardwalk digital ledger with smart contract code, but also connected to the Oracle blockchain as a cloud service with the immutable IDs that were there. So the ability to be able to rapidly deliver these applications, connect them into a blockchain environment, have the ability to do both on and off-chain WIP is a key to all of this. Now, again, what do you get with blockchain? You get more secure data sharing across multiple organizations, verified consensus with irrefutable updates, an irrefutable data store, a provenance for the system of record, and tamper-proof audit trails. So the combination of Boardwalk, your enterprise data, which is the most important thing, and blockchain will definitely transform multi-party business networks. So what now? So certainly don't get left behind on blockchain. Call us, talk to us, do your investigation. It is going to really change the way that we exchange digital information. Work with us. Start to think about kind of different digital ledger applications that you could deploy. And as part of this, this demo and webinar, we would be very honored to work with you. Initial consulting free of charge, and we actually, JB decided to offer this. We will offer a custom demo with a single data view of building out an application that you may have in a Boardwalk digital ledger blockchain environment at no charge through the end of the year, so that you can help socialize that with all of the people in your enterprise that would be interested in learning more and understanding how blockchain and digital ledgers work. We know we have a number of questions. We're at the end of our time. We will definitely respond back to those questions. And we very much look forward to hearing from you at demo@boardwalktech.com. And it was an honor to be on this webinar and to bring you up to date on blockchain. Thank you very much.